about 217 candidates. We have 150 participants who have joined now, and we have the expert with us also who had joined online. I'd like to, good morning, ma'am. Good morning.
Good
You are
morning,
muted,
Ganga.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Because I got so scared, Ganga, that I had to mute myself.
Yes. I'm pleased to, introduce Dr. Professor Shree Deepa, ma'am from the University of Hyderabad. She has been an associate professor in the University of Hyderabad in the Center of English Language Studies, School of Humanities. She is also a joint faculty in the Department of Education and Education Technology, School of Social Studies, University of Hyderabad from July 2019. She is also visiting professor at Indian Institute of Planning and Management and taught courses there courses like appreciation of art, culture, and literature. Besides, she has been involved in the creation of IFLU's programs like PGCT and PGCDT, and she has been also contributing a lot in that. She has also published lots of books with great publications and countless number of research papers, and has been an expert trainers in various places. And she has been participating and presenting effectively in many seminars, conferences, etc. So I'm pleased to invite ma'am as the expert for today's session. I'd like to also add one more thing. Ma'am has been one of the few early members who were there since the beginning of the course creation process. So she has contributed extensively in the course creation process, and you might have watched ma'am's video yesterday. You might have had a peep into her expertise, her knowledge, along with Professor Geeta Dhurairajan from the English and Foreign Language University. So both of them have extensively contributed together, and I'm happy to invite ma'am as an expert today. Ma'am, most welcome, and the stage is all yours. If you wish to share anything, you can also share. Otherwise, you're requested to start the session, ma'am. The session is being recorded as well. Good morning.
Yeah. Ganga, for how long? What is the kind of time that I have?
We'll go up to 12:15 at the max.
Okay, done.
12 o'clock we'll start discussion, and we can take some questions for 15 minutes.
Sure.
Okay.
And I would want to share my screen. Do I have the permission to do that? Share my screen? No? Ganga, you're muted.
Yes, ma'am, you can share your screen. Yes, ma'am, you can share your screen.
Okay, because it is no recording unavailable, it is saying, but share the screen. I'm not able to see the button. Yeah, I got it now.
Yes.
Share, allowed to share screen. Yes. And welcome to all of you for the first session. And as Ganga introduced, this is going to be a wonderful course that you're going to be a part of. Is my screen visible, Ganga? Not yet. Is it visible now? Yeah.
Yes, it is there.
All right. So this is going to be an interactive session. And I'm going to be posing a lot of questions to all of you, and it's not going to be a summary of what you have already read or what you have already heard in the form of video or in the form of the book that all of you were given as part of that book. So we are going to be asking you a lot of questions, and this is going to be a thought-provoking session rather than a summary session. Is that okay by all of you?
Only one request: if they want to answer, they can raise the hand or they can write in the chat box, because it is a large audience, so it can be a clustered response. Yeah.
Correct. So I
can raise your hand and we'll call you.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can moderate the session and let me know when the questions are there. You can just come in and ask those questions.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So, of all the things that human beings do, one of the major questions that most of the chapters on such a topic, that is understanding language or what is language, The first question that comes to anybody's mind is, how is human language different from animal language? You would have understood from what you have read or what you have learned earlier from the linguistic point of view that animals, some of the animals, they do have languages. For example, dog barks, or a cat mews, or a cow moos, or bees communicate with each other, and all of that. So some of them are sound-based communication, some of them are chemistry-based communication. But when it comes to humans, this kind of a variety, because let us look at ourselves as a human species who occupy the face of Earth. As a human species, what are the different ways in which we communicate? But if you take, for example, a sparrow or a crow, you take a crow from China and you take a crow from India, you take a crow from, say, United States of America, or maybe Spain, or whatever place. Most of them, or all of them, I can say, they have the same kind of communicative systems. They are going to say cow, cow, and no, not in any other way. But when you take a human being from China, a human being from the north of India, a human being from the south of India, a human being from Alaska, a human being from Australia, do we have the same kind of sound systems, and do we communicate with each other with the same system? This is a major question that we need to ask ourselves. If we ask a question such as, does a crow from China understand a crow from Sri Lanka? We may say probably yes, because when we hear both of them talking, probably they understand each other, but we do not have any kind of scientific evidence to say that they either understand each other or they don't understand each other. Then we have to work from the premise of our own human species level. And for sure, I can say that if a Chinese person stands in front of me or sits in front of me and talks in a Chinese language, I wouldn't be able to understand a single word. Perhaps if that person is directly visible, then maybe I can make some sense based on the body language that they have or the gestures that they have. But if it's on a telephone call, I really would have no clue. And I'm sure most of you in this group would have no clue. If that is being the case, okay, let's move on from there. We need to ask ourselves then, what is language? All of us take pride in saying that we are language teachers and we teach language, we learn about language, we write in language, we use language, so on and so forth. But do we really know what language is? This is going to be a highly philosophical question. And as language teachers, at some point in time, and as adults who are teachers, we need to ask ourselves this question. What is language? Unless we know a concrete answer to this question, it becomes very difficult for us to attempt to teach it. But when it comes to learning it, I mean, all of us have learned not just one language, but more than one language. In India particularly, I can say it very safely that everybody in India knows at least 2 languages. You cannot find a person who knows just one language in India. It is possible in the other countries, but in India, it's highly impossible. So we need to say that at least 2 languages we have already learned, or young children, they're already learning. Now, when you say learning, do we know everything about this language that we are attempting to learn or that we are using already? For example, I say that my mother tongue, the term, is such and such. So do I know every word and every usage of this word in my mother tongue? Can I do everything in this mother tongue of mine? So when we start asking ourselves these questions, it kind of disturbs us, and it should. Because we are mostly comfortable using this for a variety of purposes, most of the purposes. But very many times there will be incidences where we know what to convey, but we do not find the words that we want to convey. So then, what is language? Very many books you just take and open, they're going to say, oh, language is just a tool to communicate. It is a medium. These are textbook definitions of what is language. So there is a message and it's encoded in language, and then the message is conveyed and the person decodes the message. And if the decoding mechanism is available with this person, meaning somebody is speaking in Chinese, I know certain aspects of Chinese, I'm able to decode Chinese. So therefore, the message will come and reach me. So language is just a medium. It is a tool. If we assume that language is a medium and tool, tools have different parts. Tools have a methodical way of using. Tool has some skills. Okay, you might have a screwdriver, but you do not know how to use it. Your hands do not cooperate. Then you won't be able to use the screwdriver. So you may have the language, but you do not have the proper sounds or phonetics or morphology or whatever which you're going to learn, or which you've already tried to read from the books that were provided to you or the videos that were provided to you. All right. So these are the mechanics of using the tool or the skills of using the tool. So as English language teachers, if we assume that language is a tool and is a medium, then we are automatically brought into skills. So we say language is a set of skills. Now, what are these skills? That way, English language teaching and English language learning has brought in very good, description of what skills are. So we call them as listening, speaking, reading, writing. But I'm going to be adding something called as grammar and vocabulary. Because when you call them as skills, you may know how to listen, but if you do not have appropriate vocabulary, you wouldn't be able to use them well. Okay. So you have the skills, but what is the level of the skills? So therefore you have the European framework, and they have this these descriptors where they say can do. Now, what is this can do? Can do descriptors are a list of things that talks about, earlier it was not can do, but it was, this person is able to listen to all of this and then, make sense of all of this, and, that kind of they got a little confused. And from skills, they moved on to something called as performance. So it's not enough if I say that I have skills. How does the other person know if I have skills in this language? I should be able to perform. How do I display that I have listening skills? There should be a text that is played. There should be a conversation that is played, and certain questions will have to be asked. And then I listen to them and I answer those questions the way the answers are expected. Only then I display that I have listening skills. So also similarly for speaking, reading, writing, and grammar. So skill-based view of language became performance-based view of language. And you're going to be learning a lot more about this in the coming modules, I'm sure. So if you say skills, now you'll have to break it down to different kinds of skills. So listening, speaking, reading, writing, grammar, vocab, very good. But do these skills have something called as sub-skills? So is it just some kind of words that I make up, or some kind of sounds that I make up and it makes sense to the other person? So I perform, I say whatever I want to say. Does it end there? Performance still stays with the speaker. So performance also needs to be understood, right? If it's not understood, then no matter how much of drama I do from my side, the other person does not understand. For example, a Chinese person keeps talking to me very fast in his Chinese language. He performs. But do I understand? There are two people here. There are two people here. There's one who's the producer, okay? And then there's also a consumer, right? There's somebody who produces the text. For example, you write something, but who do you write it for? Sometimes we write diaries for ourselves. So we become the consumer of our own diaries. We don't write it anymore. We write shopping lists for ourselves. Because when we go into the supermarket or even when we order it on Blinkit, we have planned it in our heads. So, but sometimes we write it down if we forget, given my age and my experience, I always prefer a written down list. A person like Ganga would do it on his mobile phone. And I'm an old timer. I still prefer the paper and pencil method. Well, so any linguistic use, any language use is complete only when it reaches a consumer and the consumer understands it the way the producer has kind of encoded. This is very important. That means the distance between the producer and the consumer is going to be large depending on what is it that you want to convey. So it's not going to be that easy to understand what is language. A lot of people, including Kumara Vadivelu, have tried to define what is language. If you look at the literature, if you read the entire history or the entire gamut of what language is, starting from our own systems, that is India, that is Bharat, the most explicit description of what language is, according to my view, is found only in our systems. Because otherwise, there are a lot of descriptions given by other people, but they're not going to be that deep and that vast and that big and that magnificent and that poetic for us to get a full sense of, or almost full sense of, what is language. Because as language teachers, at least this question we should be able to think about. Whether we are going to get the full answer or not, I'm not very sure. But we must make this attempt to know what is language. Because as adult users of language, again, we are talking of two different terms: language learner and language user. Right? So a learner for us right now in this context is just going to be the student, right? And user is when we try to convert the same student into our own class student. For example, he or she has been a student of class 7, and now they've come to class 8, where I am the teacher of this class. But whatever they've learned up to class 7, we expect them to use in my class 8. So we cannot run away from the term language user. Because if we look at our own pattern of how we learned our languages, are we a learner even now of our own languages? Yes. Are we a student of our own languages? Well, maybe, because if we have a conversation, say in Hindi, with a poet, for example, the way in which the poet talks to you, A simple coffee table conversation or a tea table conversation. When you have a conversation and he says something really beautiful, and you say, hey, that's a wonderful expression. Maybe I can use it too. So in that sense, you become a learner. But when you go to a sabji wala, when you go to some other, mundane place, you want to buy a railway ticket, you don't expect poetic responses in language. You just use it for getting your functions done, right? As long as your functions are done, I want a railway ticket from this place to this place. And the other person, the consumer of your speech, understands and gives you the ticket. Then your job of using the language over there is successful. All right. So this is going to be a cauldron of different kinds of functions, different kinds. Now, when we bring this down to the classroom, how do we teach it? How do we teach it? See, teaching requires certain methods. Teaching requires certain steps. Now, where do you begin? Where do you move? Where do you go? Where do you end up? Do I hear you saying, okay, we'll have to write a question paper, we'll have to ask them questions, we'll have to prepare them for life, we have to prepare them to move from class 8 to class 9, for instance, or from class 10 to class 11, or whatever, because these students are going to stay with you for a very short while. Or even if you're a teacher of class 8, 9, and 10 together, at some point in time, the student is going to exit from your classroom and move into a new place. And this person, this student, ought to be able to carry forward all that they have learned. Right? All that they have learned. Now, so this is going to be like a tiffin box that they're going to carry with them. Now, if they're going to carry this with them, then they're going to have to remember. Remember what? Is it just the words or the usages? But when it comes to, again, we go back to the question of what is language. We find that whatever we have learned, when we are trying to use it in our own lives, we tend to generate or we tend to create or creatively using the language in ways that we never thought before. That is what is literature or literary use. Very often it happens to me. I'm sure it happens to you as well. When you're speaking extempore or when you're writing extempore, you sit down, you plan it in your head, fine. But when you actually sit down to either maybe take a class or give a speech to an audience, or maybe even lecture like what I'm doing right now, I probably have a couple of, ways in which I planned out my lecture or my instruction, or whatever you want to call it. But I am surprised by how certain words and certain thoughts come without my having to plan it. I end up using words that I've learned, the speech mechanisms that I've learned, the vocabulary that I've learned, the grammar that I've learned, in a way that actually surprises myself. And I'm sure it has happened to all of you. So creativity or generativity is a basic quality of human language. But do we Are we sure that crows create poetry using their calls? Do cats write or speak poetry? Do cats sing? We have no idea. There's no scientific evidence for us to say, yes, they do sing, or yes, they do have poetry, or no, they do not have poetry. So we have not done that kind of research. Here and there, sporadically, a couple of researchers you're going to find. But largely speaking, it's very safe for us to assume that we do not have enough information. But if we go back to history, say Solomon, it is told that he was able to speak bird language. So also in our own culture, we have various references where somebody like Vikramaditya or somebody like Nakula and Sahadeva, all of them, they were able to speak animal languages. They were able to understand animal languages and respond to them in animal languages. Maybe some residue of all of that we find in some northeast villages where people speak using whistling languages, and their names are also in terms of whistles. I would have mentioned that in the text. I do not know whether that's still there or not, but you can go and look it up. It's called a whistling village. So you will find that. So then what is language? Language has the capacity to generate itself. You don't agree with me? Well, I'll give you a simple example. All of us sat down in our LKGs and UKGs, and I'm sure your own children or neighbors' children, whoever, you've seen them. There are only 26 letters of the English alphabet, or there are about 580 odd letters and different patterns of, say, the Hindi script. We've learned only that much. But look at how many books and how many libraries are getting written using just the 26 letters of the English alphabet and 580 letters of the Hindi Devanagari script. And it's not just that, the same script you're using to capture another language that is Sanskrit, another language that is Marathi, and different varieties of it you're going to find in Gujarati, different varieties of it you're going to find in various other languages of India that use the same Devanagari script. So if this is not generativity, what is generativity then? So what is language? A language is something, it's an organism that's able to produce more of itself, right? But it has to go through the medium of the human. See, earlier we said language is a medium, is a tool through which your messages are encoded and decoded and recoded and response and stimulus and all of that. But here, look at it. There's a set of letters. It goes through the human being. When it comes out through different human beings and one human being, it comes out in different ways. It is able to reproduce itself. And one of the major things that we also need to think about is that no matter how many times you use the letter A or the akshara A, it's not going to get over. That is another surprising thing of what language is. Like I said, we're going to think about this term language from a philosophic point of view. So it's not just a medium to send and receive messages. It's much, much, much more than that, much bigger than that. And it's only our Bharatiya system which has addressed the magnificence of language. And it's universally applicable to all languages, including English. Yes, it gets its functions done. Yes, we are learners of different languages. Yes, we are also users of different languages based on the functions. So if the functions get done, you are a good user. If the functions don't get done, you are a bad user. So what happens is when you're trying to learn a new language, or trying to use a new language, you make certain mistakes here and there, and people don't understand what it is that you've actually, the message that you actually wanted to convey. Unless that message is received by the receiver, you wouldn't know. And how do you know whether the receiver has received or not? You need to get something called as feedback. Unless they tell you that they have received. You teach in the class, but unless the student displays, lets you know that he or she has learned through a feedback mechanism, there's no other way of finding out whether the student has learned what you have taught. The teacher may teach whatever she wants, but has the learner learned? Has the student learned what you have taught? How do you know? You're going to have certain modules later on assessment. But when we look at language itself, the nature of language itself, we need to ask ourselves all these questions. And the students from your class, they need to carry forward all that they have learned. So what kind of responsibility does the teacher have as a language teacher or teacher of any subject? Because they're going to carry it forward with them. So is it something that they're going to carry forward in their head or carry forward in their usage of the speech organs, carry forward in the way that they write? How are they going to carry it forward? Where is it coded? I mean, do you have certain file systems inside your brain where you store it? Where do you store it? How do you know? There is a space inside your brain that is related to language. And if people are studying more about that, then they're going to be studying in the domain of, say, for example, psycholinguistics. So then what is language? Going back to the same question, what is language? It's various. If you look at it from the linguistic point of view, mostly people say language is a set of sounds. When the sounds come together, they become words. Right? So if you're studying sounds of any language, you're studying the phonetics or the phonology of the sounds. If you're studying the words of a language, when you put together all these sounds, you make a word. This is what the second language acquisition or language acquisition theories talk about. They approximate learning of a language to how a child naturally learns a language. So how did we learn our own languages? We started saying, there's a theory that says we started making all kinds of sounds. And then when we put two sounds together, for example, we went on saying and something like that. And one day we said mama or amma. And the whole family is so happy for the child for having produced the sound. They say, "Arre, mere beta mama bol diya, ya amma bol diya." And there's a celebration. The child understands, okay, this is what they're celebrating about. They start producing it. They start using the same word more and more. But after some time, they stop. The whole drama around the child producing the amma word stops. So the child again experiments and produces some more words and some more words and some more words. And slowly the child puts together some of these words into phrases or clauses. And then these are incomplete sentences. So they're not going to be speaking full sentences yet. And then if they put these words or the phrases and clauses in a certain system, then we call it grammar linguistically. So another word for grammar would be, say, syntax. In other words, language is nothing without meaning making. So we can safely call language, if we may, as a meaning making tool, as a meaning making medium. Meaning that the producer of the language has in his or her mind using the language as a tool, and it is communicated and is understood in the same spirit. How often do we say, oh, did you think like that? I never meant. That's not what I meant. There's a huge possibility of misunderstanding. And the linguistics people will always tell you, if you get your grammar right, if you get your vocabulary right, if you get your syntax right, the intended meaning will be easily communicated. And therefore, grammar learning or syntax learning is needed. A phonetician will say, okay, you're going to say potato or potato because nice or nice. You know, the rising tone, the falling tone, the fall rise. All right. So if there is a change in all of that, the meaning will change. So if somebody comes and asks you, how is this? You say, nice. That has a particular meaning. You say, nice. Nice. The words are the same. The sounds are also the same. The intonation changes. And when the intonation changes, the meaning changes as well. All right? Then, when you look at language as a meaning-making tool as well, slowly we will move into a paradigm where you say language becomes my identity as well. Because you don't believe me, you look at the different dialects. If somebody speaks English in a certain way, you can identify that this person comes from the state of Kerala. Somebody speaks English in a certain way, you say, okay, this person is from Gujarat. How do you know? The way in which the sounds of this language is produced has become my identity. No matter what you do, you have to work over it to help you mask your identity. But very many people, including me, we wear our identities proudly on our shoulders. Yeah, if I'm a Malayalam speaker, so what? It is not mother tongue interference or mother tongue influence. It is mother tongue pride. Why should we be ashamed of your own languages? This is a colonial perspective. I mean, in today's world, even Google Maps have begun speaking like Indians, have begun speaking English like Indians, and they're available in our own Indian languages. Why? It's because we are too big a nation, too cultural a nation, too diverse a nation, too unified a nation, that they have to bow down to our varieties. And we should be proud of our own background, our own identity. There's no need for us to have something called as linguistic shame. Why should we be ashamed of who we are? We don't need to be, not anymore, not in 2026. Because if there is an Alexa, the Alexa will also be able to speak in Indian English, because we are one of the biggest nations that peacefully exist. So therefore, your linguistic identity becomes a complete you. So what is language? Language is me. So what we have found is that if we look at language as sounds and words and phrases and clauses and grammar and syntax, we are working in the domain of language as a system. In other words, to the question, what is language? We say language is a system of sounds, words, phrases, clauses, grammar, and syntax, so on and so forth. And therefore, we had, items in our textbooks like fill in the blanks. Mary had a dash lamb. I mean, a person can say little lamb, big lamb, no lamb. 5 lambs, 1 lamb, all these answers are possible. So it's not enough if we define language as a system. Maybe in the initial course of your early classes, maybe language as a system, teaching them the sounds, the phonemes, the phonic system of teaching them any language, including English, you know, se, anar, or ba se, baba, or whatever. You know, you need those systemic method or systemic way or systemic limit of teaching language or even learning language. But remember what we said, carry forward. So what are your students going to carry forward? Yes, they're going to carry forward certain skills, certain words, certain clauses, grammar, syntax, but that's not enough. This carrying forward the system must be linked to the context. I know English, but I'm not able to write an email. I know English, but I'm not able to speak. I know many words in English, but I'm not able to use the right word, pick the right word in a particular context. See, for example, if there's a principal who's asking a student, why haven't you done your homework? The student can say, how does it matter? Why is it your problem? Right? In perfect grammatical English. But will the context be suitable? What is going to be the repercussions of the student of using such a grammatically correct sentence? It's not suited to the context. The student, and of course, all of us as adults, when we move beyond the systemic limit of defining the language, we have to include the context. How do you speak to a bank manager? How do you speak to your teacher? How do you speak to your friend? So the context becomes important, and you cannot dismiss the context from the language. You may produce grammatically correct sentences, but those correct sentences, are they appropriate? So the next word that we are going to be looking at is appropriacy. So is it appropriate to the context? As teachers of language, we need to be able to define language as such, look at, raise the limitations of the system to the context as well, and then help our students identify the context and what are the options. So when you say appropriacy, you cannot work without the options. Do you want it? Yes. Do you want a pen? Yes. That's an answer. But, the explanation of why I want this pen and why I want a particular kind of pen. Why is it that I want a pen that writes? What is the color of the pen that I want? What is the make of the pen that I want? And do I want a pen with the refill or ink in it or not? Or do I want a stylus? The context will determine. And the options of what you already know as sounds and words and phrases and grammars and the syntax, these become your options. And from the options that are available to you, you will select the most appropriate or the most suited sentence or utterance or phrase or clause or word to suit the context. Right? But now these contexts, if you look at it, what are the different kinds of contexts? Usually in the textbooks and in the literatures, you're going to find, okay, at the bank, at the post office, right? These are the contexts that are given to you. And is it possible for a teacher to include all the contexts that this student might encounter in his or her life? Situation-based contexts. We can only make an intelligent guess. And with the time that is available to us, maybe a semester, maybe a year, it's not possible. It's going to get very difficult. The teacher can just give them some kind of a net practice, if you call it a skill. Okay, because earlier we began by saying language is a skill. Listening, speaking, reading, writing, grammar, and vocabulary. So this is a system that they have. But performance is not a skill anymore. It becomes choice. Because of the various options that are available for you, your performance is either good or bad or neutral or worse based on the choices that the person makes while using the language. So, language learner, who is your student now, who is also going to become a user, is it just whether the functions are done, yes or no? Is the function done at the bank? Are you okay? Did you get your check passed or not? Did you fill in your request for change of phone number, request for the change of address, all of that properly or not? Is it just that? Is it just about whether the function gets done or not? If that is the case, by class 10, you don't need to teach them anything else. Because for 10 plus 2, that is considering LKG, UKG as well, for 12 years, these students have been learning English as a system, learning any language as a system. You don't need to have any more English classes in BAs or BScs or more than that. What is the purpose for you to do a PhD? What is the purpose for you to come and sit down here in a DCT course if you've already learned your language? Then what is it that you come here to do? What is essential here, which nobody talks about, is how these extra instructions convert you from being a user to becoming a better user. So that your functions are not just a yes or no, but it is much more than that. Now, what is much more than that? Change of address at the bank. That's fine. But if you want to convince the bank manager to give you a loan for a limit that is above your current, CIBIL score limit, because these bank managers, they have some privileges, okay, where they can use their privileges and say, okay, for this person, I can give them maybe 1 lakh more as loan, even though their capacity is not that much. So they came for their eligibility is 10 lakhs. I can also give them 1 extra lakh. So much more than that. How do you convince? How do you convince? So language is used for convincing. You don't believe me? What happens in the interviews? How do you convince a fleet of people to hire you over the 100 others who are being interviewed by the same panel? You try to prove that you're better than the 100 others who contend for the same job. So it's not just a yes or no functions anymore. It is much more than that. It is performance. It is performance to the best ability. It is for convincing the other person. A whole field of marketing exists based on the convincing power of language. writing those jingles. So now then, what is language? It's not just phonetics, syntax and morphology and so on and so forth. It's not just the context which is at the bank or post office. Language becomes your culture. Because some people are very successful in landing all the interviews. Many people are not. Then it is because they do not know how to perform language and make it their own culture. Many people will get the job at the interview, but when they are actually performing their jobs, there are other people who get promotions faster than these people. How? The use of language, the same interview got both of them in. But the linguistic culture, the method of using language in such appropriate precision that it becomes part of your culture. And beyond that, I'm sure in psycholinguistics and other places, you do not have this term. Language becomes your verbal disposition. Here, because when you're trying to get into a job, because that is why all our students are there. Nobody learns for learning's sake anymore. Why are you learning in the DCT course? So that you perform better in your job. Because unless learning is, most of the learning here is connected to the job. Not just getting the job, acquiring the job, but keeping the job and growing in the job. And one of the major ways in which we do this is by using language. So what is language? Language is something, language is my performance, language is my verbal disposition that helps me keep my job and helps me grow in my job. So getting a job, keeping the job, growing in the job. These are three major uses or three major areas in which you perform in the language, so that you build a verbal disposition. And I hear some of you saying, well, I do my best, but then I have an interesting HOD who doesn't give me any promotion. So it becomes, the next level, or just before verbal disposition, you have to have something called as linguistic tolerance. Okay, linguistic tolerance and provocation. For example, you make a very good timetable and go to your HOD, and the HOD does not like you. The HOD will look at your timetable and say, no, this is not good at all. You made a mess of it. The HOD or somebody in your life, they provoke. It could be your own husband, it could be your own wife, it could be whatever, it could be a friend of your student in the class. They provoke using language. Everybody provokes. There's a lot of incidents of linguistic provocation. For example, road rage. You're driving and somebody comes and brakes in front of you. There's no damage. But then you get out of the car or you get out of the bike and say, why did you come here? There is provocation. Now, if language becomes you, the way in which you respond to provocation is called verbal disposition. So you need to teach your students to use language, so that it is beneficial. Beneficial to whom? Beneficial to the speaker, the producer of the language, and beneficial also to the consumer of language. Now, why are we going through all of this? It's because the title itself says nature of language. Now, what is nature? Nature means it has certain systems. It will not overlook those systems. It has certain timing, right? And it has certain work. And it also has certain offerings to give you. Let's take the example of a mango tree. It has a certain system. Mango trees will produce only mangoes. It will not produce ladyfingers. It will not produce potatoes. It will not produce tomatoes. Similarly, language has, when you look at the nature of language, it has certain ways in which it operates. And we are trying to decode and decipher the mechanisms of its operation. And language has timing, just like nature. When you're not going to get mangoes all the time, it needs certain conditions to be fulfilled. It needs certain amount of sunlight. Yeah, but these days you find mangoes fruiting even in December in South India, in my place. I've seen mango trees producing mangoes. I was wondering why. It's because we have only 3 seasons: summer, summerer, summerest. So in the summerest season, we get very good mango fruit. But in the summer and the summerer season, we get mangoes out of which we can make chutneys. These are on trees, not in the cold storage places. So because this is a proof of global warming, right? Well, let's leave the mango tree aside. Now, in nature, with the conditions being under standard temperature and pressure, that is STP as they call it in chemistry and physics, thinking that it is summer at that point in time, only at that point in time, the mangoes will begin fruiting. So similarly, language has its own timing. There are various, timing, context may be the same, but the timing is different. So how does language function as an appropriate response to certain questions? You don't believe me? Let me give you an example. A common example that is found in most of the movies and all that. When somebody comes and gives a proposal and says, will you marry me? Now, what does this person? It's a timing. It's a simple yes or no question. Is it? Somebody comes and asks somebody, will you marry me? Is it a simple yes or no question? If before we say yes or no, a million things go on in the mind, and we cannot discount that. So the timing, maybe this person is already married. Maybe this person is already in love with somebody else. Maybe this person is not interested in marriage. Maybe this person is not financially ready for marriage. Maybe this person wants their parents to choose for themselves. Maybe this person wants to complete their education. There are so many ifs and buts. So a simple yes or no answer will not suffice. A lot of thinking has to go into it. So what is language then? Is it just a system? Is it just a word? Is it just grammar? Is it just syntax? Is it just vocabulary? Timing. Maybe if the same proposal came in after 2 years or before 2 years, the timing will change the answer. So language is timing as well. And language works. I mean, even silence works. Language works. If somebody says at an interview, can you join us in a week? Your answer will determine whether you get the job or not. And it'll also capture the desperation that you have to gain a job, or the priorities that you have in your life. So language is not such a simple organism. It has so many things that operate. And language also offers. What does it offer? It gets you a job. It helps you keep a job. It feeds you when you're hungry. Because unless you tell people that you're hungry, using language, who is going to come and, feed you? If you need a raise in your salary, you're going to have to work and ask your boss in such a way that it gets done. So language has so many functions. It's not a simple organism of how you say potato or potato. It's not just that. It's got so many layers to it. So then let's understand that language is not just for words alone. Because when you look at the Western systems of description of the organism called language, very many of them stop with the description of the word level. But when we look at our own Indian systems, we have something called as, language is called as the vak. But there are different levels and different manifestations. So we have the Vaikari vak, or the vak that is uttered or written or read, that is tangible. So Vaikari vak. Then you have the Madhyama vak. Then you have the Pashyanti vak. Then you have the Para vak. 4 different levels at which the vak functions for us. So what the Western systems, most of them do is they only describe at the word level. So language means words. But then, don't we need to bring in and understand that the words are actually thoughts, actually the messages that we want to communicate? Now, very few Western thinkers of language talk about language as thought. Because very often we also talk to ourselves, right? We use words to talk to ourselves. So there's going to be interpersonal and intrapersonal talk. So when we talk to ourselves, do we call it thoughts or words? Is it thought or word? How do we think? Which language do we think? And we keep telling ourselves this. Self-motivation. Oh, yes, you can do it. You're very good. See, you got an A grade. You can do it. But then you can also say, you are a useless person. You are a fool. You are an idiot. Intrapersonal talk. So is that at the word level? Or is that at the thought level? Because all thoughts need words in some way. This kind of an interface brings us to more complicated versions of defining what language is. Then, language is also action or deed. Remember, going back to the example of somebody proposing to somebody. Somebody says, will you marry me? And the other person says, yes. It's just one word, 3-lettered word, Y-E-S. But the action that is brought into this 3-lettered word is a lifetime of commitment. As they say in churches, till death do us part. Well, they did not bring in the courts or divorces. They did not anticipate that, because the action or the deed of this one word, yes, is a lifelong commitment. Or would you like to join our company? Sign, give your contract, sign and say, yes, I'm accepting this letter of appointment. It's just a signature. Signature is also a word. It becomes a deed, it becomes an action, it becomes a commitment. Will you do it? For example, those of you who are married or those of you who live with others at home, will you do the dishes today, please? Since the domestic help is absent, would you please do this for me? Would you please cook? The person says yes and sits down and watches Netflix. There's no food. Both of them are hungry. Okay? And पेट में चूहे दौड़ रहे हैं या पूरे घोड़े दौड़ रहे हैं. And when you want to sit down and eat, there's nothing. Somebody says, okay, will you make food for both of us today? Will you make lunch for us today? Yes. And we sat down. We sat and watched Netflix. खाना बन जाएगा? नहीं बनेगा ना, करना पड़ेगा. So words are again connected to deeds. It's not just verbal exchanges. It has thoughts embedded in it, and it cannot be removed from the action or the deeds. So therefore, is it learning or acquisition? This question I'm going to leave with you. So are you learning a language, or are you acquiring a language, or are you performing in the language, or are you using language? What is language? And when it comes to a country like ours, Westerners usually speak from the monolingual perspective. When it comes to English, in the erstwhile Britain, when they came to rule us, the colonial so-called masters or invaders or whatever, when they came to rule us, they came with just one language, English. We need to understand the Macaulay perspective. They came and tried to teach us English. We did not want to learn English at all. Why? Because we had our own well-functioning systems. We had our own libraries. We had our own languages, and we understood one another perfectly well. Right? We did not want to learn a new language that's much, much, much more inferior than our own well-functioning systemic languages, well-functioning languages. For example, they tried to teach us poetry. Didn't we have poetry in our own languages? Don't we have poets in Hindi? Don't we have poets in Malayalam, in Tamil? What kind of literature did we have? We had much, much, much better literature than what they could bring and offer us, and we did not find the taste for it. So they violently introduced English to us and made us feel ashamed of our own languages. They brought in something called as linguistic shame into our bodies, where they made us feel that if you do not know English, you're missing out something. But unfortunately for them, they were able to hold on to that only up to 70 years or so. But now the world is learning our languages. The world is looking at us for inspiration, because we just don't have a first or a second language. We have multilingualism with us. We are plurilinguals because we are India, that is Bharat. We are a proud nation. We are a nation of different languages. The Britishers tried to divide our country based on linguistics, based on the languages. People who spoke Tamil were put into a Tamil Nadu. People who spoke Telugu were put into, should have called them Telugu Nadu, but then they called them Andhra Pradesh, the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh. And then all these divisions were made based on language because they wanted to divide us. And we are falling into the trap even today. So wake up to your reality. Wake up to your linguistic pride and do not feel ashamed of your language, your own languages. So that's all is what I have for you today. Over to you, Ganga.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for having such a wonderful discussion. And I think all the participants here, they must have a very good thought, food for thought to think whether language is as simple as they thought of earlier, or whether it is something that we have to consider as human. Ma'am has been using the word humane constructive language. Ma'am, there have been some questions. I take them. I tried to merge them all. I was compiling these questions so that, because there were more than 20 people who asked the questions, I tried to compile them into 5 questions, grouping them together. And we have about 10-15 more minutes to go ahead with that.
Sure.
So the first question is compiled into: what is the nature and purpose of language, and how is its relationship with thought, communication, emotion, artificial intelligence, and translation? Questions are compiled by many people, including essay, I don't know the name, Jyoti, Liza Rani Das, Payal, Anil Kumar Paswanji, and and a group of people like this. So how is it related with other things? I think throughout that we had a discussion on that, but how is it related to other formats as well?
See, if you're asking me how is language related to thought, I would say language is thought. There are different schools of thought over here. So some of them say that language is thought. So some say language is a medium for expressing thought. And how the interconnections actually happen, that's a full-fledged 1-hour session again. So I wouldn't be able to answer that in 1 or 2 sentences. Well, these people can go and find out. And when you're talking of winning in AI, I'm sure AI is still evolving, and we are being the subjects and they're learning from us. Well, it becomes, this is what I have found out, is that now we have come to something called as the post-proficiency syndrome. So we are not with proficiency issues anymore in the classrooms. But I do not know about schools. I've moved away from schools from quite some time now. But in the university setups that we have, we are not bothered too much about proficiency anymore, because I do offer open source exams where the students are free to give in their thoughts into LLMs, so, platforms such as ChatGPT, and then make use of ChatGPT to write things for them, because they are here to stay. So more than ever today, language becomes the thought rather than just an expression of thought.
Right. Thank you. The second question is compiled into how the teachers can balance standard language. Maybe, how can teachers use language effectively in multilingual classroom to ensure comprehension while balancing standard language or regional influences and the use of mother tongue? You were saying that, as one of them was saying that when I was using English, I could see that they are understanding. But when I immediately translated that into Hindi, say Hindi or regional language, I found they are understanding it better. So what should I do? Am I right? What should I do in such a class? So balancing standard language use in the class, in English class, with the regional language.
Right. See, the term standard is a very mythical term, I would say. Now, what is standard? And when you try to apply that to something that's very, very diverse, it becomes very difficult for us to, adopt ourselves to a standard. What is the standard height of a person? What is the standard weight of the person? What is the standard color of a person? If we get into such dialogues of standardization, that means a lot of other people do not fit into it. And people are made in different ways. People use language. When people are made in different ways, their usages are going to be in such diverse ways. So standardization is an artificial imposition to facilitate, to probably put a crown on only a certain elite. So standardization doesn't exist anymore. I mean, now that the whole tiny little country of UK has gone down, I can say so very, very proficiently because my daughter right now is settled down in UK and I know what is happening in UK. So whatever they've standardized is not standard anymore. And the current UK is literally going in a very different direction than what they envisaged. So standardization doesn't exist anymore. But yes, you do have people like Cambridge University Press and they're selling IELTS tests and all of that. But that is a different argument altogether because they're selling the concept of standardization only in terms of consumerism. Because unless they say that this is standard variety of English, they will not be able to sell their tests or they will not be able to sell their coaching courses. But when it comes to a classroom like our own, why are we even bothered about standardization? I mean, Google Maps speak to you in Indian English. Alexa, I'm sure Ganga is the best person to answer that question. I think it speaks to you in Indian English now. Your cell phone speak to you in Indian English. And you have a variety of choices. What about Australian English? Most of the, who is that in cricket? Whoever is the person who announces, I forget the term because I'm not a great fan of the commentator. Is he called that? The fellow who announces the ball is being flung by this fellow.
Sabogli.
Huh? So therefore, I think as a huge nation who is waking up from the colonial slumber today, we should not see this as an interference, our own languages as interference, but rather than our own languages as a resource, as more of the nutrient. You can bring in the nutrients from Hindi, from Malayalam, from Telugu, from whatever language, and you feed it to English and make English stronger. Because let's understand something, we have a much richer culture and English is a very anorexic language because it cannot capture the thoughts, our own culture that we have. For example, jutapan. We have a concept in our country, which is jutapan. If somebody takes and licks it, we will not give it to another person unless if that person is a family member or a close friend. We have those limitations. Now, what is this jutapan in English? Are shabd hai hi nahi usme? And when they came to our India, I think looking at the variety, they went mad. I feel very sorry for all those Britishers who came to rule us. They would have gone mad. Otherwise, why would he come and, they take what is called as, in my language, it's called as kollu. They named it as horse gram. I mean, how unimaginative can they get? Cowpea, chickpea. अरे थोड़ा तो भी अक्ल इस्तेमाल किया होता ना तो अच्छा होता. उनके ब्रेड क्या है, एक ही वाला ब्रेड है, ब्रेड एंड बटर. बट हमारे कितने सारे ब्रेड्स है, पराठे हैं, ये है, वो है, पनीर पराठे में भी पनीर पराठे है, आलू पराठे, मूली पराठे. I mean, they would have gone bonkers. I feel really sorry for them. Earlier, I was angry with the Britishers, but now I feel very sorry for them. They found such variety with us. So therefore, we need to be proud of our own heritage and culture and our own language and understand that it is the fault of the English language and we will embellish English language with our own words. For example, samosa, bazaar, the kind of richness that we have. English language is incapable of capturing all of that. So there should not be any kind of linguistic shame in us. So it's not mother tongue influence or interference. It is more of mother tongue nourishment that we need to give to our English language.
Right. Thank you. So this was asked by Lakshmi, Samit Kumar Khalsa, Devanjani Chaturvedi, Devanjan Chakrabarti, and Shilata Pillai and Frederick William. I think the next two questions are too generic and this will be answered later. Like, what is the most effective strategy for developing learners' language proficiency, particularly as a sort of skills, grammar, vocabulary differentiation, and also we'll cater to them in the next few sessions. And also, what challenges do learners face in understanding and acquiring language, and why children acquire language naturally while others often struggle with learning a second language? I think this question will be answered in the topic when we are dealing with the language learning. There is a topic on that, so we'll deal with this. However, one more question prominent here is that when and how should teachers correct learners' language errors to improve accuracy without reducing confidence and motivation? This seems to be a little appropriate in this situation, because we are dealing with human language and learners feel demotivated sometimes when over correction.
Right. Right.
So, ma'am,
so when it comes to correction, error correction, see, I'm not going to answer this as a language expert. I'm going to answer this as a mother, because I taught my child how to use language, and I taught her most of the subjects in her primary school. And later on also, the one strategy that I've used with my child, which has been very successful, I can say that, because right now she's about 32 years old and well settled, and she's a pediatrician, she's a gold medalist and all of that, then probably my method of teaching helped her. So with that premise and with that rider, I'm going to say this very comfortably. Any kind of correction in your classroom or with your own children or children that are around you or anybody who makes a mistake in any place, if you couple correction with humor, the correction stays for a long time. If you couple correction with fear or any kind of negative emotions like punishment, the corrections will not stay. So it's more of an experience of 32 years that I have. So I've always mixed up corrections with a good load of humor. For example, when my child was writing G, she wrote it on the line. All right. See how we write F, because they have those horrible four-ruled notebooks. And F you need to write on the blue line. And then G comes within the blue line and goes down and touches the red line below. So the child is a child, and child naturally got confused. So why should I write G like this and F like this on top? I mean, the movements are the same, but one is going down and the other is going up. And how do you explain such things to a child? The child says, okay, I'm comfortable writing it like this. And we do not have reasons as to why this system is like that. So what I did was, I told the child that if you're writing G like this, the G is sitting on the dining table and has the leg hanging down, whereas the F is standing on the dining table. So I made my daughter stand up on the dining table and then made her hang her legs on the dining table. And this kind of somehow, I'm glad that it made sense to her. So is it a standing line, or is it a line that's sitting on the with the dangling legs? So this kind of helped, and the confusion stopped existing for her from then on. So my suggestion to all people over here is that any kind of correction, you do not punish the child. Bring in a little bit of humor. Ask the child why this is done. I can give you loads of examples, because my daughter again came back and said, Mama, this is a teeth brush. I said, no, beta, it's not teeth brush. It is called toothbrush. Then she said, no, it is teeth brush. Then she bought the tube of paste and said, this is also teeth paste. I said, why are you saying teeth paste and why are you saying teeth brush? It's called such. Then she came back and said, Mama, when I'm using the toothbrush, as you call it, I'm not doing like this. I'm not brushing one tooth at a time. I'm brushing like this. At any point in time, the teeth brush touches more than 2 teeth. So therefore, I'm going to call it teeth brush. I'm going to call it teeth paste. So how does a mother who is an English teacher, who is a PhD in English, explain this to her? That too, a chutku who's 5 years old. I mean, you cannot bring in Chomsky and that fellow and this fellow and, Daniel Jones and say this is how they have said it. And you cannot bring in the native speaker argument or bring in the standardization and things and talk to a child like that. So I said, yes, beta, you're right. But it's those people, they do not know, they're not able to think like you. They want to call it toothbrush. So for their sake, jaake usko aisa hi bula do. You call it for them. She said, okay, fine. But then in my mind, it's only teeth brush. I've written about all of this in many of the articles that I've published. If you want, maybe you can ask through Ganga, I can share some of those articles. So
yeah,
these are
that
Springer.
Yeah, we can share that. There can be an extensive read about that. There can be some, good read about those ideas. So, ma'am, if you wish, you
Ganga
can
sir,
share the link with me. I'll share that in the group.
Sure.
Right,
Ganga sir, sorry to interrupt you. This is
right.
Ranga.
Yeah,
I have one question to ma'am. One question. Just I want
yeah.
to ask.
Please go ahead, sir.
Uh,
Please.
uh, yeah. Professor ma'am, just I have one question to you. This is not like argument, but just I want to ask you. If English was just forcibly taught to Indians, why are so many people like us around the world, including here in India,
Mm,
actively choosing to learn and use it today as a language for connection
mm,
and opportunity?
mm,
Why can't we use, like, I'm from Andhra? Why can't
mm.
I use Telugu for opportunities and connections? Then how this cursed language become a blessing for a job seek and all?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I answer that?
Yes, ma'am.
See,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ranga, we need to understand that these Britishers did not just invade us, they invaded a whole lot of countries. And they wanted to leave their imprints over there because they wanted to rule the whole world. So that is why, whether we liked it or not, it is not on you or me. We are just carrying forward the linguistic inheritance. I mean, if the first person who did not let those Britishers come and set up their East India Company, if that fellow had taken a decision and said, I don't want you entering my country, we would have been a much better off country right now. And if that is what all the others also did, when these fellows came with their guns, if we had better weapons of fighting them off, and if we were not this tolerant, I think we'd have been much better. But we have just inherited this linguistic culture because you and I were born much later, maybe 100, 200 years later. So that is the only fault that we seem to have been, doing. And we do not have any other way of setting it right. But yes, we can convert this into, use English language to our advantage. I'm not saying we should not use English language. Do not misunderstand me. We should use it, but we should use it with our own linguistic pride and not feel ashamed and small if we make a mistake in English and if we are not, as good as, anyway, there are no good speakers of English in the world today, except a large population of them exists in India. So the global syndrome has a lot of Indians moving out to various places. So that argument doesn't hold. Yeah, we should be using it for our opportunities. We should use English, but with the awareness that we are not sold to it. Our souls are not sold to it. Okay,
But
treat it with caution.
But ma'am, we are like providing in schools like English as a first language. Why can't we, change this perspective? Why can't
Yeah,
we
you go
provide?
change. You're young. How old are you?
I'm 30 years old.
So you go get yourself a good job. You get yourself a Ministry of Education position. Go change. I'm old, so it's not on me. It's on you.
No, you're blessing to
He's,
us.
he's,
You're not
he's one
old.
of the
You,
directors in one of the school
Change.
setups.
Good.
He's one of the directors in a school setup.
but nobody is willing to join if I'm making Telugu as a first language. If they are not willing to join.
So bottom up pressure, ma'am.
So go influence much more. Go influence. It depends
Yeah.
on your influence.
Right,
Become an
right.
MLA of your place.
Thank you. Thank you,
Become the
ma'am.
Chief
Yeah,
Minister of Andhra Pradesh.
hopefully.
Change,
Hopefully. Thank
change.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It was Ranga sir is from Vishakhapatnam and has good influence over 5, 6 or more than that schools. I
Good.
hope we'll try from that point as well. The
Yes.
last only very quick question because the hand is raised. Vijaya Thapaji, if you have a quick question, we are almost exceeded by 5 minutes. Vijaya Thapaji, ma'am, I hope we can take one.
Yeah.
Last,
Yeah.
Vijaya Thapaji, if you have raised the hand because you have any question, please ask. Otherwise, we'll stop it. Vijayaji, your raised hand and you are also unmuted. Okay, so I think this is a hand raised by mistake. So I'll pick from the list of audience. This will be our practice. I'll pick one person who has commented on nicely on everything to provide the feedback, and that is today given to Anjali Krishna. It's randomly picked because of the frequent response given. Anjali, if you are there, can you please unmute and thank ma'am for taking the session, because you have had good, you have written good about the learning that you have from this. So Anjali Krishna, if you're there, can you unmute and thank ma'am? Anjali Krishna,
Yes, sir.
are you there? Yeah, please,
Yes,
please.
sir. Yes,
You
sir.
may share
Yes,
your
sir.
feedback
Good
about the
afternoon.
program today. And thank ma'am also. Yeah.
Yes,
Please show yourself. Would like to have a look at you if you can.
yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah, right,
Yes. Good
right.
afternoon, ma'am. Good
Yeah,
afternoon, sir.
yeah,
First
good
of all,
afternoon.
let me thank you for such a great session. It was such a great session, man. It actually felt like feel going back to our linguistic classes, learning about the language, the context, the uses, all those things. It was brushing up our memories where, our HODs used to say how precious the language. It is always that we say that our greatest gift of the humankind is language, nothing else. That's what that took us into this great race of, in the evolution run. So it was actually a very great session, ma'am. Just, with all the words that you have said, it is actually questions for us. It is actually mind-boggling questions. Why? Why is it so? What is it so? So it it is a lot of information that brainstormed us to think what to transit, what to learn, what to question, and what to actually acquisite of this little syllabus that we have with. So a great thanks to you, ma'am. I have seen your videos on the Indic relations that you have related, how beautifully you have related the English language with all the cultures. So much of thanks from my side, and with the words that we all have to echo, I thank you on behalf of all of us, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Right.
It's
Thank
my
you.
pleasure. So thank you so much. So hope
Thank
it
you.
made
Thank you,
some
ma'am.
sense. If
Yes,
there are
ma'am.
more hands being raised, Ganga, I don't have a problem to answer them. If there is a burning question, I think we should, as teachers, we should probably.
Yeah, Sheetal ma'am has
Sheetal.
one CRS. Yes, ma'am. Sheetal ma'am. Yeah.
Yes, good afternoon, ma'am. This is Dr. Sheetal. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for this wonderful session and what the philosophy of the language, which lead us in, thinking about the language, going to the roots, and it was really wonderful session. And as very correctly you said that each country has their own language, and our country is, has very rich culture. Currently I'm in the France, and I'm actually experiencing all these things, as you gave the example of samosas, and they have very limitation of food, limitation of languages, and you said how they have translated, and all. It made us to think on our own culture and connecting with the English language. It was a wonderful session. I just want to thank ma'am. That's why I have raised my hand. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for inviting ma'am for this session. And you are the one, like you are connecting good people. And I hope everybody has learned many things today. Thank you so much, ma'am.
And I've just put in the latest book that's going to be released tomorrow. It's already been released in Chennai last week. And I've just put in the link for that. So those of you who are interested in taking some of the arguments further, I put in the Amazon link and the Orient Black Swan link. you can go and, look at the book. And if you find it interesting, you can reserve a copy for yourself.
Ma'am, what is the name of that book, ma'am?
It is called Anthropology in Use, Handbook for Language Educators.
Okay, right.
So they printed the copies, and it's already out of print now. They're going in for reprints. So it would be, you can, reserve your copies.
Great, great.
Ma'am,
Thank
I could see, if ma'am is okay, I could see ma'am, Geeta ma'am is also around. I'll invite ma'am for another session. So ma'am, if you
Sure.
could just join and bless the participants. Uh,
Hi, Ganga.
hello ma'am.
Yeah, Deepa ma'am was handling the session, so I didn't come in.
Ma'am, we'll have one session with you as well. So we are planning, we'll have, I'll reach
Anytime,
you.
Ganga.
Right,
Ganga,
right, ma'am.
after you are finished with the participants, I have one small query for you. If you have 2 minutes time, after you signed off.
I'll call you, ma'am. I'll call you.
Yeah,
I'll
you
call
just
you.
call. No issues. Good day to you, Ganga.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
And good day to
Thank
all the
you,
other
thank
teachers
you.
who are there.
Thank you very much to both of you. And they have seen the video and they must have now been seeing live to both of you. The video was live yesterday. They must have had a great experiences watching your videos and your live. So thank you both for coming. And I didn't know that ma'am is around. Otherwise, I would have asked both of you there for this session. Anyway,
I planned it
we'll
like
have it
that,
in
but then since I was handling it,
Since
she
she was
has.
handling it, there was no point in me coming in. That's all. She was anyway doing it. So
yeah, next class we'll have it together,
we
ma'am.
can do
Thank you.
another
Thank
class
you.
anytime. Okay,
So
Ganga.
thank you.
Call when you're free, Ganga.
So have a
Sure,
wonderful
sure.
day, all of you. Thank you very much.
Yes, namaste, ma'am. Thank you. So on this note, I'd like to thank both the ma'am. I just called ma'am yesterday and she responded, yes, Ganga, I'm all there for the session. So I'd like to thank both Shree Deepa ma'am and Geeta ma'am for being there and blessing us and creating this program. Ma'am, the program has grown now, as I was talking to ma'am yesterday, and we have more than 217 participants at 5 regional centers now. And if we ever visit, we'd like to have you at our Mysuru center, because Mysuru we can have, it will be a closer by center, and we have 50 enrollments in Mysuru. So we will be having 2 contact phase. Then if you are free at that time, you can come in person and also interact with some of these course takers at Mysuru.
Absolutely fine. For academics, anytime, yes.
Right, right. Thank you. Thank you to both of
Okay.
you, ma'am.
Have a
Nice
good
day.
day.
It was nice meeting you both. So on this note, dear course takers, will stop, and we have about 104 takers now. I think we have reduced from 150 to 104 now. You know the rules now. You need to come on time and you need to be disciplined while talking, while interacting. We'll pick you from on the basis of your chats. On the basis of how you perform, we'll also pick the attendance and post it there. So I hope you would have had a wonderful discussion today, and we have further discussions like this to come. It will be a very enriching journey in your development as a teacher and development as a language teacher especially. So thank you all very much. I'll stop it here. I'll stop the recording.
Ganga sir, thank you so much to you.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am is so nice actually. We are
Ganga
so
sir.
blessed.